Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about planning a carving, how to make sure it fits within the block that you have. So I'll show you how to do that. And then we're going to talk about Charlie, who's my model, and I'll introduce you to Charlie. So let's say you have a block of wood. This is about 3.5 by 4 inches, and you want to know if you can fit a certain carving in. So let's say this is the carving you want to do in there. Here's another size. It doesn't make any difference whether I'm using this one or using this one. All I have to do is change the scale. So what I start with is a corner. This is just a 2x4 on the bottom, a couple pieces of plywood. So if that block is 3.5 by 4 inches, then what I do is I'll take my model and I set it on here, and let's say the narrowest part is going to be, I want this to be to 3.5 inches across here because it's narrower here than that way. So what I do is I set a scale. These squares, I will draw a scale maybe representing 3.5 inches coming out to the tip of his nose here. And then I will take that same scale and I will use it in this direction to see if I can get to 4 inches all the way across. And if it's beyond 4 inches, then I have to have the 4-inch side dictate and then make this a little smaller than 3.5 inches. By making the squares equal, so then that will tell me what the height is. So I just count the number of squares up for the height. But now when I'm carving it, I can look at it and I can see where all my details are. So I can see the height of the legs. I just need to count up how many lines or where this arm is here, where that line is. That's how I determine my scale. So many times I'll have a block of wood or a log and I want to put a carving in there and I'm having trouble visualizing it. If it's going to fit, I don't want to start it too big or too small. So what I want to do is I want to create a model of what I want to do, and then I can use a scale to make sure it'll fit within that log. I'll measure the diameter of the log. It's 14 inches. I make 14 squares on the model and then see what the height is going to be. So that's how I use this. So it's a pretty simple device and I use it. I made a bench. The bench, this was one end support of the bench, the raccoon coming out of a log, and the other end support of the bench was this guy holding. So the arms lined up with the top of this here and the plank went over the top of both of those. I use it for all kinds of things when I just having a corner like this is pretty handy. And I can just take this paper out, put another paper in, just draw up any scale that I want. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is a model. So if you go into art supply stores, you can see things like this, and they're pretty helpful. Making your pose or whatever, you know. But I've never really found this real useful because most of the time you have clothes on it, so you have to really kind of visualize with the clothes and everything like that. And it's a little bit difficult to make clothes for something like this. I suppose you could. So I made Charlie here. I'm going to introduce you to Charlie. There's Charlie. He's sitting over there on the mantle here that I'm getting ready to carve. I made Charlie just out of some scrap wood that I had. Just a soft cottonwood. One thing Charlie's good for is he's half scale. So he's about my height. So you can pose him with the clothes, so you can copy, you can get the wrinkles of the clothes the way you want, make it look natural like in here or something. He can sit there all day, never needs a coffee break. I pose him, let's say when I'm doing the Last Supper, I use him a lot because I will pose each apostle, then I use folds, and when I get done with that apostle, then I'll repose them for the next one. I'll show you how the construction is. He loses his head a lot. There we go. What I did is I tried to make the joints pretty much like this arm goes out like this here. So there's a hinge right here. And then it also pivots like this. On the bicep and on the forearm, I made pivoting like this. So there's a dowel in there that I pinned. And so how I pinned it is I have a groove that goes around the peg here. So what I'll do is I will take, I drilled a hole in the bottom here for the dowel, and then I put the thing on, and then I will come in with the drill and I drill to the edge of it. And then what I do is I'll keep that drill running and I'll start rotating it. And what that does is that mills that groove going around. And so that's how I did these joints. And then I put a pin in there so it'll stay in there. So the wrist moves, the arm rotates, the bicep rotates, this comes out. And the torso, the same thing. I have the torso so it can twist. So it's not really accurate. I can't get the head to kind of tilt the way I want. Hips and that don't quite move the way human hips do. But I can do a pretty good pose for him. I've got the feet so they will move up and down. He's pretty versatile. He never gets paid. He works for nothing.